second day of our conference. I would like to ask you to take a seat, please. Come in, find a place in the middle of the room. Not everybody should sit only at the sidelines. Please come in, have a seat. We want to start now. A very warm welcome also to the live stream guests that are online with us today. So we had already a nice and very constructive and interesting debate last night as the first session, the so-called high-level session, that's how we called it yesterday. And also a nice 20th anniversary party. So thank you for being with us yesterday and thank you for being with us today. That's more the working day today, so we start with going more into details and more into depth discussions. And I already announced yesterday that we have also this year, first time, the breakout sessions where we really want to go into the details, and all of you had already to register for one of the breakout sessions. So we will explain after this panel how that will look like and where you have to go then, because of course we have to separate. But now I wanted to hand over to Krzysztof Stanowski, who will moderate the first panel. We were glad that he already were on the panel yesterday and gave us a little bit insight from the Polish view, but today he is the moderator. He has a very in-depth view of the decentralization issues and the work with civil society and associations in Ukraine. And we are very happy to have him here today. So, Krzysztof, the floor is yours. Please, let's start.
Guten Tag, dobrego dnia. Good morning. Today we will have chance to talk about decentralization, local democracy in the wartime. But before we'll start, I would like to ask you to think for a moment about those thanks whom we can talk about democracy, about local democracy. My city is 80 kilometers from the border. We understand that Ukrainian soldiers are protecting also us. This is the habit in Ukraine, but more or less at that moment, people stand for a moment and think about those who protect their normal lives. Please stand up with respect to those who are on the front, who died. Thank you very much. Dziękuję. It's a pleasure and honor to moderate this panel about decentralization, reform, about local democracy and the war. It seems that it's no logic in that. When you are talking about the war, you talk about Taurus, you talk about Abrams, not about local democracy. But there is a unique country, it's called Ukraine, where people try to talk and try to practice democracy. And we understand that in the 10 years, the Ukraine did unique decentralization reform, empowering local communities, doing something unbelievable. Just imagine for the situation in Germany that you amalgamate your communities. And in the few years, voluntary, you decrease the number of local governments from 11,000 to 1,400, roughly. Yeah, impossible. Just imagine what that means politically, and it was a democratic situation. But the war changed a lot, and we see the challenge, how the state should operate. On one side, we know that without local governments, Ukrainian army would not protect the country. It wouldn't be enough, especially those communities which are close to the borders were crucial for military protection of the country. At the same moment, we see the centralization, we see the needs of the war, and then not all the people around the world, including Ukraine, are fans of decentralization and empowering local communities. There are some who would like to keep the power in the government. So this is the subject, this is what we will talk about. We'll try to think how responsibilities should be shared between military and civil administration. We'll try to talk how the local democracy survive and remain vivid under martial law. And what's our relationship between European Union, in what way we on one side support democracy, on the other hand, in what way Ukrainian facility, European instruments are supporting these ideas. I would like to invite to the stage 4 practitioners, experts. Please join us, Tatiana Arsenyuk, Natalia Drozd, Michael Geller, Igor Oniszczuk. Please join us on the stage. Let me introduce our respective guests. Tatiana Arsenyuk, she is Deputy Executive Director of All Ukrainian Association of Amalgamated Territorial Communities. Today, it's the largest association representing over 850 local governments. She's an experienced expert on decentralizations, and for a long time, she worked in the Ministry of Communities, Territories and Infrastructure Development. That means she was responsible for the decentralization process from the governmental side. Welcome once again on here in Berlin. Natalia Drozd is the head of Dobrocin NGO Center in Chernihiv. She especially works in the area of the civic participation, good governance, local democracy, and she was leading numerous projects supporting resilience and communities, at the same moment promoting transparency, citizen engagement and cooperation between civil society and local authorities. Welcome here with us. Michael Geller is a member of the European Parliament from Germany and a Parliament rapporteur on Ukraine. He is the long-standing supporter of Ukraine, European integration, reforms, and closer cooperation on security within the EU framework. Thank you for being with us. And finally, Igor Oniszczuk. Yesterday from the Deputy Mayor of Mykolaiv, we learned some Swedish best practices. He was talking about relations between Swedish local governments and Swedish government. Igor Oniszczuk is expert with the Polaris, Swedish-Ukrainian program. He is working in the area of strengthening the institutional capacity of local government associations. Especially, he is expert about fiscal decentralization, the financial issues linked with the local governments. You understand, local government without money, no, it's not the real local government. So we will organize. We have about 90 minutes. Let's start having few opening introductions. Let me switch to this microphone. With opening introductions, I will try to keep them not longer than 7 minutes. I will try to manage it, and then we will have time to comment each other presentations, and we will allow audience to ask some question. Tatiana, how it is to move from the ministry to the Association of Local, it's working, to the Association of Local Governments, how you see what is the most important in the decentralization process, understanding situation both from the government, Ukrainian government, as well as local governments which you represent today.
Доброго дня.
Hello everyone, dear friends. It is a great pleasure for me to be here at this conference. Thank you very much for having me here. I'm representing the Ukrainian associations of the amalgamated communities which emerged in course of the decentralization reform. Yes, this is true. I started my career as a part of the reformators team, and I am very grateful to my teachers. I was in the team of Vyacheslav Nehoda by that time. And then we were really excited by taking every step of the reforms when we were planning the decentralization reform, when we amended the reform, when we implemented some steps. So we were really active moving forward, but no one could imagine that our country will go through or is supposed to go through such a tragedy as the war. And yeah, I would like to also say that 3 days ago when I left Ukraine, there was an attack. A Shahed drone hit a house in front of mine, and I feel excited because my house was also damaged by a heat wave, and I had plenty of issues to resolve before leaving for this conference. So we didn't have any glass in the windows, and the gas supply and the electricity, it was all cut. And my first thought was, it is all over. And when my children and I went to the ground floor, we were met by our firefighters, by emergency doctors, and the civil servants of the city. And then we realized that we are in safety, and we were taken to the Unbreakability Center. What is it? Unbreakability Center is something which the local authorities create so that the citizens can stay there when things get tough. So they can get medical aid there, they can drink some water there, it is warm there, and you can also charge your gadgets so that you stay in touch with your loved ones. So those points, those centers are everywhere in the country, and we had to spend a night there when our house was hit. And there we felt in safety. So basically, you went down from your floor, and you had been expected for. Yes, exactly. There was an explosion, and my children were also very scared. This was 3 days ago, and tonight there were also another shelling, but it is really hard to go through it. But what I want to stress, we felt in safety because our community helped us. There were some civil servants from our community there. There were also explosions in Kyiv region. When I looked through the news, and I saw in the news that the leader of the community that suffered the shelling was already planning for the recovery of this community after the shellings. I think this is all because the decentralization, why the communities are so capable. So I could really experience it, that people know for sure what they have to do after the shelling. So everyone in the community knew for sure what's their role. So please forgive me that I'm so emotional, but it is really important for us now, because we are fighting against our enemy altogether. And we are really thankful to you for your support. If I may, I would like to add a couple of comments about decentralization, because we are speaking of decentralization and re-centralization. Well, basically, when the communities get additional capabilities, and re-centralization means the vice versa process. Like decentralization meant that the services went or moved closer to the citizens. There are different services. As a result of the reform, 1,400 of the communities in Ukraine were amalgamated, and 460 of them are now occupied, and this makes up 31% of the overall number of the communities in Ukraine. If it weren't not for the war, we would be in the latest stage of the reform, and we would be speaking about the constitutional reform. And I would like to say a couple of words about the martial law. May I? Okay, I would like to remind you that the martial law is a legal regime that is being introduced in case of an extreme threat, which terminally limits some rights and gives the national government additional capabilities and rights. And there are terminal authorities, the military administrations, and they are supposed to be dissolved 10 days after the martial law is over. By today, we have 208 military administrations for 1,469 amalgamated communities. There are 49 military administrations, 48 military administrations in Kherson region, and only 17 leaders of these administrations have no additional capabilities, according to paragraph 10 of the respective law. So we have different variants how this martial law can be implemented. So the authorities can be granted fully or partially.
In the first year of the war, the state was controlling the situation, and it was important. We had a successful decisions, and local self-government was also under huge pressure, and there were some changes about taxes, and there was this decision led to local self-government lacking financing and revenues. But we understand that these decisions were important for central government. Now I would like to wrap up, and I would like later talk further on that topic.
It's very important to understand that these institutional changes were part of the legal system of Ukraine. That means something is constitution, something is on the law, and this is partial centralization linked with the war, is the part of the legal system of Ukraine in such unusual situation we are not always remember about that in Western European countries, that there are some legal provisions in extreme situation, including the war. Ms. Tatiana started with the personal experience of her family from this week, so close to people is Natalia Drost, who is with a non-governmental organization, who is working on other side or the same side. Natalia.
Good morning. I'm really honored to be here because sometimes civil society is seen as something that just additional partner, situational partner, maybe we invite them, sometimes maybe not, they are not important. So I really do appreciate your invitation and my voice as civil society to be heard, because on the local level, especially local communities, local authorities, they do appreciate what civil society is doing now together with them. Now civil society has to balance its role. During now the second year of the war, we became a real partner, so we like a pillar, very important on the local level. Together with the local authorities, we organized and now continue organizing, like Tatiana told these examples. It's not only communal services there were, or emergency services, there were people, neighbors that helping, bringing, taking to their own homes. And it's normal to have this horizontal networking. It doesn't matter. You are state authority, emergency, local authority, civil society. Civil society now, it's, I mean, broad. It's not only NGOs, TCOs, charity foundation, volunteers group, separate volunteers. It's very, very different range, broad civil society. And now we perceive ourselves as a glue that make all these people on the local level more empowered and strengthened, because we are very adaptive. We have lots of expertise, professional expertise. We are very professional in collaboration with local authorities, regional, nationals, and more important with international. So we are the facilitator of any time of communication between residents, starting horizontal networking, and also trying to provide this vertical networking, but including this bottom-up approach. Because we would like, or when we, now I would like to back to these issues of security, centralization, and re-centralization. In these discussions, we've heard security, its priority. Indeed, it is, but it's not opposite democracy. Sometimes in this discussion, we have democracy on the left, security on the right. It doesn't work. Recently, we have a discussion in Kyiv Conference of Resilience, like what we have, community-based approach in recovery or human-based approach in recovery. They are interrelated. We couldn't separate them. It's the same. Security without democracy, we couldn't stand. If I talk about my own region, I am from Chernigiv. Chernigiv region was occupied during first hours of full-scale invasion. Hromadas were occupied. They were cut out of any supplies, and people, civil society and local authorities, they were on their own. And due to decentralization, they have resources, powers to act, and they feeling of this, they have this feel of co-sharing, that they responsible for their own community. So decentralization, in reality, it saved lives, indeed, because they should not wait any order from the regional government or central government. And we have an example from Horodnya territorial community. This is the only one community in Ukraine that borders with Russia and Belarus, all simultaneously, and now they are still under severe attacks, but they continue to practice democracy. We as NGO, we helping them now to elaborate statute its municipality local acts, how to ensure citizen participation in governing the community. And back to this Horodnya community. So, and they told that without democracy, they couldn't be able to survive. And they had an office of FSB, Russian FSB. They didn't have Russian regular soldiers. They moved forward to Chernigov, and only FSB stayed in their own city. So they came to visit mayor and talk to him, and they couldn't understand why he is so brave. You could not have your own budget. They couldn't comprehend that, for example, regional authority or national could not tell what to do with his budget. So this difference in seeing how the things is working now in Ukraine, this is a real example. So we were so proud to listen to this mayor and to his citizens, and we are so proud. They feel even, you know, if I may say so, superiority before the Russian soldiers, even FSB, that we have such system of governance that allows citizens to participate. So when we are talking decentralization and re-centralization, we should remember it's not opposite. It's a combination, it's interrelations. Yes, we do need to have military administration, but the criteria should be transparent and understandable, and for sure accountability. They should not take all the budget. They still need to consult with local deputies and local residents. So I will just stop for now, just to have you time then to ask questions. Thanks.
Thank you very much. It's a very important lesson for us to understand how different also legal situation is in different communities, closer to the front, in the areas which are not under permanent attacks and on the occupied territories. We should understand, for many of us it's new, that when there is this military administration, in many cases, the head of this military administration is the previous mayor, previous head of the community, which was nominated as a military, but he was military administration, but he used to be elected before. Not in all the cases.
Yes, sometimes it's like just appointed from the vertical, from the Kyiv, and it has nothing to do with the territorial communities. And
it's both.
It's not good or bad if this person should consult with the local communities, with the residents, with the deputies, everything is going well. If it allows democracy to participate in this governing, yes. If not, then it's a problem.
And there were many heads of communities which were kidnapped,
yes, indeed,
killed, tortured by the occupants. But these cases you mentioned, I know personally those heads which were with communities to the last possible moment, and the authority did not come from the nomination from Kyiv, from the capital. They were elected by people, and they were representing people. Igor, let's switch to the money. You are expert on money. And local government is not about position, it's about money and responsibilities. How it goes, what happened, what are the challenges, what is most difficult today, how you will describe the situation to us?
Okay, I'll try to explain this point, but first of all, I would like to say thank you so much for this opportunity to join today's discussion, because I think it's very important, really, not only for me. I think it's extremely relevant for Ukraine in this current wartime context. And if we introduce ourselves, I worked in Ministry of Finance of Ukraine when the Decentralization reform started, and also I supported Ministry of Regional Development And now I actively supported communities and provide expert support these two ministers. So, as an expert in decentralization and local finances, I would like to share a few reflections and how our system of local governance and local finances has been transforming, and what trends we observe now in this balance between decentralization and, I hope, temporarily re-centralization during the wartime. So, one, decentralization is an irreversible process. And to be honest, Ukraine carried out one of the most ambitious reforms in Europe, because over the past years, we have traveled a path that other countries have taken decades to complete. And what's important, decentralization in Ukraine has happened. And there is no way back. Resources, responsibility, and power have transferred to the local level. And I think this has changed our country, because communities have become true core of local democracy, strong, mature, and capable. And yes, the full-scale war became the ultimate test, yet the local self-government stood as backbone of state. And communities organized territorial defense, and at the same time they supported armed forces, and at the same time they helped internally displaced people, and at the same time they sustained businesses and keep life going, even under constant shelling. And
you mentioned that local governments are responsible, as I understand, voluntary, for supporting military, for supporting armed forces.
Yeah, but they have resources because of decentralization reform. And this is very important, and I think all this was possible thanks to successful decentralization reform, and local government have gained real autonomy and fiscal capacity, and this is why communities endured. They remained effective, and they proved that decentralization is not a risk. It is Ukrainian strength. Second, local finances are foundation of capacity, because one of most important outcomes has been fiscal decentralization, because local budgets have gained stable revenue sources, expanded their own revenues, and most importantly, they obtained the ability to determine independently their own development priorities. And this is really important. Three, wartime challenges. To be honest, we must acknowledge that martial law has objectively led to certain process of re-centralization. But I think this is a natural reaction state under such difficult conditions and of threat, strengthening the management vertical, centralizing certain decisions, and limiting local autonomy in some areas. But it is important to emphasize that is strictly temporarily measures, and there is not rolling back the decentralization reform. Moreover, all relevant legally and regulatory acts clearly specified that these such restrictions apply only for the duration the martial law. And I sincerely hope that after it ends, the full decentralization process will resume. And I sincerely hope that our European partners will continue closely monitor the respect of these principles, because I think they remain the cornerstones of Ukraine's democratic development. 4, positive progress and new instruments. It's important because even under such difficult conditions, we are witnessing significant progress in local finances and investment management. And in particular, it is worth highlighting the implementation of public investment management, PIM system. This is a modern framework that helps improve the efficiency of budget spending as well.
What means PIM?
Yeah, PIM. Yeah, as well as selection and monitoring infrastructure project. And public investment management reform continues and promoting greater transparency, justification, and effectiveness in the use of funds at both levels, national and local level. And these tools are especially important now because they create institutional foundation for post-war recovery. And conclusion, decentralization in Ukraine has not only withstood the war, it's proven its vitality and effectiveness. Yes, there are temporary restrictions and yes, maybe increased role of central authorities, but at the same time, local financial autonomy has been preserved. Investment management continue and local self-government remains responsible and resilient. We are moving forward towards a more mature, sustainable and accountable system of local government. And I'm confident that after our victory, we will be the local level, our communities and municipalities that will become the main driving force of Ukrainian recovery, development and modernization. I sincerely believe in this. Thank you.
7 minutes, 45 seconds. Believe me, it's really so strict. We should remember one fundamental thing. That decentralization reform in Ukraine was started from tax codex. Not from the changes in the constitution, not from the law on local governments, but from the tax codex. And the finances were first among those changes which were implemented in Ukraine. Mr. Geller, being in European Parliament, reporting the situation of Ukraine gives you unique chance to see for these reforms and to participate in planning EU action towards Ukraine, how you see the situation, how you see what happened, and in what way do we assist, what's our role, what's the future in this dialogue?
Yeah. Доброго ранку, шановні українські друзі. Good morning, participants here. First of all, thank you very much for the invitation. Most German MEPs, me included, have a record in local government. So most of us started as local councillors. And so this level of local democracy has always been close to my heart. Now, I'm coming just over from the Berlin Security Conference, where Ukraine is also the major issue, of course. So, and I'm glad that I could address this issue here. And in general, we always praise the decentralization as one of the most successful reforms in Ukraine. And what we have already heard here, I think, proves that, both with regard to, it is a success story to have reorganized now down to from 11,000 to 1,400 and something these communities. If I recall, I was still very young when we had, in the beginning of the 70s, I wasn't involved, our regional reforms in Germany in the different Länder, how painful that was. The older ones will recall that there were fights for survival, and so, but somehow it worked relatively smoothly in Ukraine. So congratulations for that. Then what was referred to by our financial expert, no decentralization works if you just give the competences downwards but keep the money on the higher level. So that went hand in hand. And in the moment when part of the, is it the income tax or that stays on the local level, then a local mayor who knows who has to pay the taxes has an interest that it is paid. Otherwise, he doesn't care if there is a corrupt structure and anyhow he gets only the money from the central office, then, well, he doesn't care. But if he wants to move something in his community or her community, then there is an interest that those who are to pay the taxes, that they actually do it, because then it stays for a larger part also on this level. I think that is one of the big reasons in general for the success, and you spoke of this investment management that is progressing, and then in the particular circumstances of the war, it was possible, as you also described, when there is a need, whatever need it is, either you are near to the front line, you have to react, or you are getting internally displaced people who suddenly appear, then you have to act, and you have then the financial means, but also administrative means to do something. And indeed, I think the success of this reform has contributed to the resilience of the entire country, and that cannot be praised enough. Now, one interesting aspect is, of course, when you do this decentralization, you had then step by step also local elections, and new or existing mayors were elected, and the city councils as well. And then you can see who delivers better than another one, because you compare in your neighborhood what works and what works less. Insofar, some kind of competitive local self-governance, which is good, because it shows who is more able and others are less able. And I think that is another positive aspect. Now, what we have seen, and that is where we have been a bit from the European Parliament in our reporting and in the people that we talk, a bit cautious. There were attempts before the full-scale war to install a system of prefects, so to say, to put, apart from the oblast administration and the oblast gubernator, then to put prefects, so to say, state parachuted people. And there we had the question, well, what will it be clear what their competences are? Is it just that they legally see whether everything goes well, or do they also interfere in the substance? And if that were so, then of course there would be an unhealthy competition. So we cautioned about that specific aspect to get it installed. One thing that I discussed personally also, I mean, I was in long contact with Georg Milbrat, who was from the previous from the two previous governments in Germany, given the task to be helpful in this process. And one of the aspects that we already discussed with the Poroshenko government and continuing with Zelensky was the issue, which we all consider important, but not so much perhaps in Ukraine, to give all the local communities a legal entity. That is the case in all of our member countries. So that is a natural situation, but it is not the case and hasn't been the case in Ukraine. That is some of this Soviet heritage. That is not the case. I think that is important for those who interact with these local communities, that they know with whom they do it. I hear that is in the process of being implemented or being decided. I think that is another good step. Now, when it comes to these military people who assume this role. Okay, as you said, sometimes the existing mayor gets awarded these additional functions. Fine. Then he knows what he normally has to do, and when he gets additional tasks, okay. I think what needs to be avoided is an impression that in specific cities, such a military guy is implanted for political reasons, so to say, to perhaps because the local mayor is not from the ruling party or whatever the motivation is, so that he, probably it's mostly a he when it's military, perhaps there are some women as well, but normally this military person should really and that is what I strongly would recommend, be in close contact with the elected mayor and the city councils in order to do his job, but not exceed it. There is no point to argue that he should assume roles that have nothing to do with the war situation. But I'm confident that not only the locally elected people, but also the civil society will have a close look that these things don't go in the wrong direction. Perhaps I'll leave it with that at the moment.
Thank you very much. In a moment, I will give chance to ask a question, but let's try to comment on each other position. Let's try to talk not from your point of view, but about that, what we heard from the colleague, what we believe is important, or you would like to comment. Who is starting? Igor? Pane Igore?
Yeah. I'll continue in Ukrainian.
Yes, I will go on in Ukrainian. Yes, it was extremely important that we had these tax reforms and the communities have gained additional resources because as the war started, it contributed to resilience, and thanks to these changes, they could help the military and organize help and all that was needed in the first days. And thanks to the reform of decentralization, we could mobilize people in our regions. We could support the internal displaced persons. It was a huge wave, and simultaneously go on providing all the services on the local level. So the communities were helping the central level in this situation because this situation was very dire. And thanks to the decentralization, we could resist. And that we do have now some processes of re-centralization. It's due to war because it's natural. And we all understand this, but I hope that after the victory, we will return to this decentralized communities and the reform will be successful and will be completed.
Pani Tatiana?
Today, our main task is to find the balance between the military needs and preserving of this decentralization, which is now the basis of our resilience and democratic principles. And our Ukrainian Association of Amalgamated Communities, we understand the situation. We understand that we have war and these military administrations, especially in the communities that are close to the front line, it is a needed process, but we do not support this idea of creating military administrations if there is no reason, no sufficient reason, because it's limiting our powers of local governments. Also, it's redundancy in certain points and certain functions. Why do we have the re-centralization, this centralization, so to speak, now again? Because, of course, the needs of martial law. And we also understand that we have to take very quick steps and decisions because we have critical problems with a critical infrastructure. And it's also about mobilizations, about evacuation of the civil people, and also we understand that we should preserve this autonomy of local government, and that these military administrations are transparent and are being held accountable in what they do, because it's a temporary measure, and this word temporary is the main word here, because we all hope that these military administrations will cease to exist after the victory. And of course, we have the subsidiarity principle. All the decisions should be taken on the local level, close to people. So you're told this is the main stance of your Association of Amalgamated Territorial Communities, but we have other 3 associations in Ukraine. Do they have the same point of view as you do? Yes, my association, we have a memorandum between our association of oblast administrations and regional administrations, and in every meeting we try to have all the representatives of these associations. And this year, thanks to the Polaris program, we were able to conduct 4 programs and 4 rounds of meetings. We were talking about the resources and budgets for 2026. So yes, now we have the All-Ukrainian Association of Amalgamated Communities and our cooperation with our Association of Oblast Administrations, of regional administrations. So also we have the Association of Agricultural Communities. We also have an association of cities, big Ukrainian cities. So they all have their interests, but it would take us too far to discuss it now. I would like just shortly to add 2 points. So considering the associations, so that you understand, we have the Association of Cities, and they have a stronger lobby in the parliament and on the central level. And it's a problem because sometimes on the central level we forget about our countryside and smaller communities, agricultural communities and villages. They also have their own association. And what Mr. Gala said, it's extremely important when the taxes remain on the local level. And that's why the mayors are interested in gathering the taxes. So the next step should be that the administration of all these taxes also remains on the local level. So our tax authority, they are primarily thinking about the national level, and the second thought is maybe about the regional level. So that's why the regional level should have more authority in gathering and administrating these taxes, because then it will work. But also the local governments should have powers, and of course we need some oversight. We should not forget this.
Until the end of the war, then we will continue democracy practicing, or the war will stop and we will return something. It will never happen. We should keep it maybe in another format, in another variant, in maybe less volume, but it should be, if it be stopped, it will be very hard to regain, to revive, to reboost it again. And if we praise decentralization, local democracy, how sustainable we are, how brave we were during the first hours, days, months of our full-scale invasion, how local authorities, citizens, state. Now we are in the middle of process. I do hope it's more than close to the end. We will prevail in the war. Now we are talking about excluding citizens, civil society, local communities that are smaller than a bigger, that have no expertise, enough capacity or advocacy on the national or local level. We should keep going and keep this decentralization and especially process of civic participation, and even more important, monitoring and oversight. because cases of corruption that we now reveal in Ukraine, it shows our strength as a state that during, in a wartime, in a full-scale invasion, we can reveal these cases, we can talk, and we try to investigate them deeply as much as possible. And we definitely would like to be sure that the consequences and the sentence for those who are revealed will be proper and fair, because citizens will feel that they were just neglected. You know, they given last money to donate the Ukrainian army, to help local authorities, to give neighbors, and when we hear about this corruption, so it's our role as civil society, as active citizens, as local governments, to keep these procedures transparent, accountable, and as open, participatory as possible. Because if you participate, you can see the process. We can make lots of different documents, rules, laws on anti-corruption, on the regulatory acts, but if we should not practice them daily, on a daily basis, it will be on just beautiful paper, wonderful documents, well-designed, presented, and put in a shelf. So let's practice and not stop on them.
Якщо можна, так. Коли мова йде про гроші, про фінанси, не можу.
When we are speaking about finance, so I just cannot stay silent, so I have to say that our local authorities are using the money in a more efficient way. They are very quick. This is our, for example, our military tax, this new tax that we have now, PDFO in Ukrainian. So it's also, it's 18% of wages, and every community has to pay the tax. Of course, we have now lots of soldiers in the army, and that's why, to sustain it, we have to implement this tax, and our local authorities were responsible for it. So yes, it was from the personal income tax, and now our local governments could use them more efficiently. If, for example, the military is asking to buy something, it's really easier on the local level to procure things, to deliver them. When it was on the state level, it was slower. So now it's the only problem that communities that do have military entities, they have more resources than the others that do not have the military entity in their region.
How European Parliament MPs are understanding the situation and how we react, in what way Ukrainian facility, other tools are ready to support both the state and local governments.
Well, first of all, like with all issues, it's not the majority of the members of the parliament who deal actively with Ukraine. I mean, they are supportive. I mean, we have a stable 5 political groups, majority stable up to 3/4 in the parliament. This is Christian Democrats, Social Democrats, Liberals, Greens, and Conservatives. So these are the 5 political groups who stably support Ukraine in general. And in each of the groups, there are those who deal with Ukraine in particular, and accordingly, they are the ones with whom I discuss these issues in this regard. And we see how which things are working well in this sector and which are not. I mean, we have to realize sometimes we have the impression there is undue political interference from the top, yeah, also on the local level. And one of the reasons is, of course, if you recall, I mean, how the current ruling party, Zelensky's party, Sluga Narodu, he was first elected, and then his movement was made a party and got an outright majority. So that with the consequence that they were full in the Verkhovna Rada, but on the local level there's no structure. Now, consequently, when you amalgamate the cities and you have fresh elections, the people who are already there, they get elected perhaps with local parties or some of the existing other ones, but definitely not the one that doesn't have a structure on the ground. So they were a bit perhaps jealous or were envying that there were others who were implementing these reforms and profiting from it. And that was perhaps the reason here and there to intervene in undue ways, perhaps also sometimes with these military guys who were then put there. I think that is something that we also note, where we argue against. And when it's now more the general issues of the implementation of the Ukraine facility, just to inform, you know, that is a program, 50 billion euros, composed of grants and credits, since the second quarter of last year till the end of 27. Now, for every quarter, there is an annex and a homework list to implement. And when the implementation doesn't go well, then not the entire money is paid. So, for instance, in the second quarter this year, there were 19 tasks to be fulfilled, and 16 were fulfilled, but 3 not. So less was paid. And once that is fulfilled, then it comes later. So that's, for instance, there was the completion of the Constitutional Court judges should have been done. That failed, unfortunately. Well, once it's done, they'll get accordingly the percentage for that. So that's the way how we work, and well, how the Commission works. It's the implementation. We as a Parliament, we watch that with our limited means, but we have direct access. I mean, you cannot believe how many Ukrainians are around in Brussels every week from different areas, and we have dozens of Ukrainian interns already in the parliament. They all keep their contacts home, and our political foundations who are also based in Ukraine, they also report to their respective counterparts. So we have, and the civil society. So in general, we have we have almost more information than we can absorb, because everything is really very active, and but we are all working and cooperating largely with these 5 political groups to get things forward and to push those who need to be pushed in Brussels, in the member states, and in Ukraine.
Thank you, vielen Dank. We have 2 microphones. We have 25 minutes, so the real opportunity to ask specific questions to our guests. Please raise your hand. Yeah, we have 2 over there. Yep, let's start.
Thank you very much. Robert Sperfeld here from Heinrich-Böll Foundation. My question is about, well, the difference between the different local administrations, local communities. Obviously, communities are affected very differently from the war, with IDPs, with destruction and all such things. And the success of local self-governance also depends on the administrative capacity and also on the tax income that can be generated locally. And you were talking about after end of martial law, also the military administration should end, but that might be also a very difficult situation then, because in many of the heavily affected communities, there will have to be a very strong role of the central government in order to provide the services to citizens, because the local administrations are just not capable of doing so. So that's one part of the question, how to prepare for that, how to create specific rules for these particularly affected communities. And the second question related to it, is there any mechanism to balance the different capacity between strong and weak local administrations, so kind of leveling fee that the stronger communities pay on oblast level or on national level, something in a big pot to support the weaker ones? Or do you think about that? It can also set wrong incentives, but so there are pros and cons for that. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll bring together a few questions. Yeah, the second is over there. I see you.
Be careful. I have a question to all panelists, because we are talking about the reforms in wartime. I have a question. Could you say briefly top reforms we could really do in 2026 in Ukraine at the local level? What we should do, what we could do in wartime really? Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And the third question, yep, over there.
I'm Paul Hawkins. I'm a correspondent for Foreign Policy magazine. Could you mention a little bit how much self-governance or decentralization applies to the territorial defense units? Ihor mentioned them. And say something more about them, how they operate. I believe that they all came about after the full invasion. And at that time, the Ukrainian military was very decentralized. I know that there have been some centralization reforms happening in it, but to what extent are those territorial units still active, and to what extent are they completely under centralized control, and to what extent from those areas for which they represent and come from?
We have three questions. Let's try to answer them. It was about administration capacity, balance as well, and we should remember the last question. There are some security issues. Territorial defense is important element. Just try to be careful.
Okay,
all right, I'll try to handle all of your questions. So let's start with the first one. As for the equalization formula between the communities, we have a system, and in my opinion, it is rather effective, and it was even motivational, like stimulating before the war, because before the reform, if you have like more of what the average was taken away from you. After the reform, we are taking only 50% of what you have more about the average. And then we provide you with 80% if you are below the average. But even the Ministry of Finance admits that this formula doesn't work because disbalance is huge. For example, for 2024, we have communities with 50–60% of lower income, and there are communities with 20–30% of growth because people went there, because businesses relocated there, and they are covering twice as more as the annual budget. So we are investing into this balancing. And in the latest 2 years, we have 36.2 billion incentives for the front communities, for those communities that had lower income in 2021, excuse me. And the Ministry of Finance is working on the better balancing, because this disproportion in war is really huge. As for the reform, 2026, we can provide for public investment management reform. So we can really implement this reform, where every community will invest into the growth and put it in an overall system dream. And every community could look at similar projects, for example, schools, and compare them. And this would be the growth money, dedicated money for the growth. And as for the territorial defense, yes, territorial defense played a huge role, the key role, in the beginning of the full-scale war. And we had many practical moments concerning the funding because the local governments cannot fund the security. It is only the power of the national budget, the national government. But in the very end, what was left was the material support of these units because the territorial defense cannot procure, for example, munition because it is not within their powers and not within the powers of the people.
So starting with the reform, it's very important as for civil society, we should start with the reform of law enforcement agent and judiciary system, because this is at the corner of, because any other reform could be less important than this first. About the disproportion, yes, indeed, it's very big. But it's not only state that should balance this. We always ask about this differentiated approach to donors. When they announce another call, they forget, and they have the same application for those who live in central, western, or eastern part of Ukraine, and the same conditions. Although the capacities of those territorial communities are different. Also, we couldn't see still yet in this Ukraine facility plan how Ukraine national government will address this disproportion, because now that we have these special target projects, it looks like ad hoc reaction. It's not like a planning, a systemic planning, because it will not end in a year. Even after the war, the disproportion will contain. So we should work simultaneously on ad hoc decision and on systemic, how it should be. Will people be back? Where will be the revenue at the budget? So it's like strategic questions and issues. And about security, for example, in Chernihiv, yes, we do have, and we do rely on them because we are only 60 kilometers from the border. So we just support as civil society authorities as much as possible.
Very important message from Natalia. Do not support only rich. Do not support only those communities with capacities, with people speaking foreign languages, professionals dealing with projects. Then you support this disproportion. And you should be careful about that. Very important message for us.
I will have some reflections on what the speakers on the panel just stated. In terms of the reform of public finance management, yes, this is an effective reform, and we have been supporting this reform. Our association created a project office for the communities to be able to study, because the legislation is being amended so quickly, so that in order to implement this reform in 2026, we shall be able to realize how many acts and legal acts shall be passed by 2026. And what I would like to say, what the communities can do within these reforms. For example, the mid-term financial planning for 3 years, where the financing and the front line are unstable. We are also speaking about the resources, because planning for the resources in 3 years in time, we need to know what projects of public investment we're going to implement. But nowadays, we are speaking of how much we are paying in PIT, personal income tax, 60 or 64%. So we are speaking about fixing this firmly so that the communities know for sure about their resources. Like in other issues, the horizontal harmonizing of the communities. Igor has talked about it. And a huge problem is the statistics. We had this problem before the full-scale invasion, and it got even worse. So these indicators, which are playing all the time and they are not balanced, this has to do with the population number. there was used the indicators of the population number from the state immigration service. But then we set the outdated data from the Ukrainian Bureau of Statistics. And this is a huge problem. So I ask the donors and the projects to tackle this problem, but I hope that there will be a method to use relevant data. Yes. Yes, Igor spoke about the incentives already. And to make a conclusion, I would like to state that the re-centralization mechanisms are being used during the martial law, but they are temporary. We already stressed it. They are local, as I said, 208 communities have military administration at the moment, and that has to do only with those communities which cannot fulfill their responsibility or those who are threatened more. Yes, another thing. I'm coming to an end already. So we have been dealing with the issues whether we are moving towards decentralization. I think yes. Even despite the war, I already spoke about the legislations that have been. I have analyzed those legislation on decentralization. In times of war, there was a draft law 1408 about the supervision of the decisions of the local communities, and the draft law 2259, the legislation of 2023, a law on the grounds and fundaments of regional policies of 2022, legislation on international cooperations of the communities 2024, and 2024 about the Institute of the Community Leaders, and 2025 we have some draft legislation about the people's power. So those are very important drafts aiming at making the local self-government more transparent and to make the self-government more accountable in front of the citizens. And they, okay, which draft law will be passed by 2026? Those are already passed. I mean, not only passed, but well, this was not my question. May I add two remarks about the support of the rich communities? The public investment management reform will try tackling with these problems. So we have rich communities that they are getting incentives from the national budget, and they have like a bunch of international donors. And there are communities whose life is too hard and they cannot attract any support. As for the statistics, this is really a reflection of the lobby of big cities. Out of the budget for 2026, using the data of 2021 is just irrelevant, because many people have left their hometowns, but the big cities, this is in favor of the big cities.
Well, I just want to congratulate you for your professionalism. You know what you're talking about. You know where the challenges are. You know how to address it. There is no need from our side to pretend that we know better. No, we don't. You know best. And we will be helpful in a moment if it were that certain things go wrong. When you say how foul, when it's about, for instance, this, shall I say, undue re-centralization, which would create structures that are perhaps not transparent enough and which allow old habits to get reinstated. I mean, we have, unfortunately, this huge issue that has nothing to do with the local level currently, this huge corruption issue, and but that in general then creates amongst those who do not really want to support Ukraine or who have their who see their old prejudices confirmed, that makes our job more difficult, and for you of course as well, because then everything is put in one pot and saying, look how corrupt they are. No, they are not. They are. Most people are not corrupt. Most people are able. Most people know what they are talking about and what in their given framework the challenges is. So I can only say we remain supportive in your endeavors and in your way forward. And let's join, and not only join forces but keep them joined, and let not any Ukraine fatigue gaining ground. I don't see it amongst all those who are doing it. Insofar, all the best, and as always, Slava Ukraini.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was a great opportunity. With us was Michał Geller, Igor Oniszczuk, Tatiana Arseniuk, Natalia Drost. Let's applaud them once again. Before I will pass the floor to the organizers, I know that there are questions. They will be able. Please join us during the coffee break. My last comment. We've seen the situation. We've seen that there are people who understand how it works, who did something, who understand that this is not enough. We have some disagreements. Definitely, we see different positions between big and small cities, between civil society and people who used to be in administration. This is natural. This is what we face in Poland, in Germany, in Spain. This is absolutely natural. But thinking about this big responsibility of decentralization, we should remember that anyway we're talking about part of Ukraine. There are territories where the reform was not started. It's Crimea. It's Donbass. On these territories, it will be, they never experienced this reform from 2014, 2015. And it will be more difficult. And you ask about capacity of local governments. Let's imagine how Berlin will operate as a third part of City Hall, would go on the front or would move to other community. It's not easy at all. And in the moment when it will be even bigger challenge, it will be even more complicated. So once again, respect for those who are on one side protecting Ukraine and protecting European values and Europe, for those who are keeping democracy alive, from the civil society, from the local governments, and for those in the governments, in the parliaments, who understand that local government is important. Once again, thank you very much. Thank you to our great panelists for sharing the information with us. Thank you. And I pass the microphone.
Is it working? No, it's not working yet. I will take this one. All right. I don't want to keep you from the coffee. I just want to briefly, first of all, thank also Christoph for his excellent moderation and facilitation of the debate. and then briefly help you to find the correct room for your breakout session in the next session after the coffee break. Actually, we have prepared also a slide with where the rooms are shown, right? So the first group on the energy topics will take place opposite this room in the Kleiner Saal. this group will have simultaneous translation. The first one will have simultaneous translation, Ukrainian-English. We have a second group with simultaneous translation, Ukrainian-English, here in this room. That will be the third breakout group. That is the one on the occupied territories, on the frontline communities, right? And then we have the other two groups that will work only in English. That is the second session on the minorities that will work in the conference room 1. That is the one in the corner of the building to this direction, to the bunker. And the fourth group on the social care as backbone of Ukraine's resilient recovery. This will happen on the window front to the Ukrainian embassy in front of the elevators. So you can go around on this floor here or exit this room through the door in this corner. Yeah. So, but you will also find signs on each room with the titles of the groups. So have a good coffee break and continue the exchange also with further questions on our topic this morning. Thank you.